We only wanted a quick shortcut through the nebula. Instead, our ship's AI politely informed us, "Congratulations, you've broken into the most secure prison in the galaxy." Honestly, we didn't even spill. Captain Marcus Hale leaned back in his chair, sipping his mug as if the ship hadn't just triggered alarms across an alien sector. Red sirens painted the bridge in warning light. On the holodisplay, an enormous fortress appeared, bristling with guns and layered shields. The words, "Restricted Zone, Galactic Detention Complex 47, scrolled in 3 languages humans weren't supposed to read. "Captain," said Ren, the pilot, raising an eyebrow. "Please tell me we didn't just invade Alvaron space." Marcus set his coffee down with deliberate calm. "Not invade. More like uninvited guests. Think of it as popping by a neighbor's house without knocking." Ren snorted. "Your neighbor has 12 plasma batteries aimed at our engines." "Details," Marcus said smoothly, brushing an imaginary speck from his sleeve. He had the uncanny ability to sound polite even while stating outrageous things, a habit that unnerved both his crew and, soon, the entire galaxy. The Odyssey's luck, their patched-up frigate, wasn't built for stealth. It was built for limping from one payday to the next, carrying a crew held together more by sarcasm than discipline. On paper, they were freelance couriers. In practice, they had a bad habit of being in the wrong place at exactly the right time. Juno, the ship's engineer, leaned against the console and chewed a protein bar with visible irritation. "Captain, their security grid thinks we're hostile. I'm picking up targeting locks from at least 20 stations. They're not in the mood for jokes." Marcus gave her a polite smile. "Then we won't give them a reason to be upset. Try sending them a message." "What kind of message?" "Oh, something friendly. Tell them we're terribly sorry for barging in, and that we'd be delighted to leave if they'd kindly stop pointing guns at us." Juno blinked. "You want me to apologize to the galaxy's biggest prison?" "Of course. Manners cost nothing." On the other side of the prison's vast command hub, alien officers were not amused. "Humans?" Warden Core spat the word as if it were venom. He was a broad, reptilian brute with scales polished like obsidian. "Impossible. Their sector is half a galaxy away." "They're here," replied Archivistson, the oldest in the room. His translucent skin glowed faintly as he read the human transmission. "Their signal is oddly polite." "Polite?" Core bared his fangs. "They breach a Class 1 facility and apologize? They also asked if they should bring pastries next time," Sen noted dryly. Back on the Odyssey's luck, the crew was less than confident about their chances of survival. Ren muttered, "I knew today was cursed the second I spilled coffee on my flight jacket." "Relax," Marcus said pleasantly. "If they wanted us dead, we would be by now. Instead, they're hesitating. Which means they're confused." "Confused people shoot faster," Juno said flatly. "That's why," Marcus replied, folding his hands behind his back. "We give them something better to think about." He nodded at the controls. "Ren, drift us a little closer to that comms relay." "Closer? Are you insane?" "Perhaps. But humor me." Ren swore under his breath and tapped the thrusters. The ship slid toward the glowing spire of the prison's outer ring. Dozens of alien eyes watched in disbelief as the human vessel casually navigated into restricted airspace, moving like someone parallel parking in a crowded street. Inside the prison, alarms shrieked. "Shields breached!" shouted an officer. "They've overridden the outer locks!" cried another. Core slammed his fist onto the command table. "How? That ship's tech is primitive! They shouldn't even understand our codes!" Sen tilted his head. "Perhaps it's not their machines we should fear." Juno stared at her console in shock. "Captain, what did you do?" "Their doors are opening like they're welcoming us." Marcus's voice remained calm. "I asked nicely. Computers respond better when you treat them with respect." "You bribed the system, didn't you?" "Bribery is such a harsh word. I merely gave it a more compelling suggestion." As if on cue, the prison's docking clamps extended, latching onto the Odyssey's luck like eager hands. Ren groaned. We're docking with a galactic super prison. Fantastic. I always wanted to die in a place that smells like wet socks and despair. Marcus picked up his coffee again. Cheer up. At least it's before lunch. The docking bay doors slid open with a hiss. Beyond them, rows of alien guards in black armor leveled weapons at the human crew. The atmosphere shimmered with tension. Marcus stepped forward first, hands clasped politely behind his back, as if he were about to attend a dinner party. "Good morning," he said warmly. "I realize we may have entered without proper clearance. Entirely unintentional, I assure you. My crew and I would be most grateful if you'd allow us to depart without incident." No one moved. The silence stretched until finally one of the guards muttered, "Why are they so calm?" Another whispered, "Maybe they're insane." "Or maybe," Sin said softly from the command hub, watching through a feed, "they're predators who learned long ago that smiling is the sharpest blade." Back on the dock, the warden himself arrived, scales gleaming, voice booming. "Humans! You have violated the sanctity of this prison. You will be detained, interrogated, and punished." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "Detained? My dear warden, you already have a surplus of guests. Surely you don't need more cluttering your halls. That's not for you to decide." "Of course not," Marcus said smoothly. "I'd never presume. But consider, if you keep us here, your prisoners might see us as allies. Dangerous, isn't it? They already seem restless." At that moment, another alarm blared. Somewhere deep within the prison, a blast door slammed open. Dozens of inmates, hulking insectoids, vicious reptilians, spectral creatures, spilled into the corridors, howling for freedom. Juno's console chimed. "Captain, I think I might have accidentally rerouted the power grid." Marcus didn't flinch. "Accidentally?" She shrugged. "Mostly." The guards froze, torn between confronting the humans and stopping the flood of prisoners. Chaos erupted. Marcus adjusted his collar, speaking softly to his crew. "Stay close. Let them panic while we walk out calmly. Confidence is the best disguise." Ren muttered, "Confidence is going to get us shot. Not if they're too busy shooting each other." As the prison dissolved into chaos, sirens wailing, guards shouting, inmates storming the halls, Marcus led his crew forward with an air of calm inevitability. To any watching eye, it looked less like an accident and more like a plan unfolding with perfect precision. For the first time, the aliens began to whisper not about what the humans were doing, but about why. And Marcus, ever polite, simply smiled. Our coffee. The prison howled like a wounded beast. Sirens blared, klaxons wailed, and armored guards sprinted through smoke-choked corridors shouting orders no one obeyed. Doors slammed open in sequence, each releasing prisoners far more dangerous than the last. Through the bedlam, the humans walked as if on a guided tour. Ren adjusted his jacket. "You realize we're surrounded by warlords, assassins, and whatever that 8-legged thing was? And we're strolling? Panicking would be rude," Marcus replied evenly. His voice carried no trace of fear, only the polite cadence of a man discussing weather at a dinner party. "Besides, notice how none of them are attacking us?" Juno glanced at a corridor where 2 insectoid prisoners ripped apart a security droid. "That's not comforting." Marcus smiled faintly. "It should be. Predators recognize predators. Instinct runs deeper than reason." On the command deck, Warden Core seethed. He slammed a clawed fist onto the console, shattering a display. "Contain them! Seal the humans in Base 6! "No effect, sir," an officer stammered. "Every time we try, the systems reroute themselves." "Reroute?" Archivist Sen's glowing eyes narrowed. "Not reroute themselves. Someone is guiding them." Cord bared his fangs. "You imply the humans are controlling our prison?" "I imply," Sen said calmly, "that every coincidence favors them. Either the universe adores humans, or they are dismantling us with surgical precision." Core snarled. "Then why do they smile like idiots?" "Because," Sen murmured, "the wolf often smiles before it eats." The humans reached a corridor where dozens of inmates were tearing apart an energy barrier. Sparks rained, smoke rolled, and the smell of ionized metal burned the air. The inmates turned as the crew entered, 3 humans against a crowd of monsters. Ren whispered, "Well, this is it. They'll skin us, cook us, and I'll die regretting every meal I skipped." Marcus stepped forward, hands still folded behind his back. He inclined his head slightly. "Gentlemen, ladies, and assorted beings, please don't let us disturb you. We're merely passing through." The prisoners blinked. One, a towering brute with horns like jagged blades, growled, "Humans? In here?" "Yes," Marcus replied with mild courtesy. "Accidental, I assure you. You're quite busy, I see. Please carry on." To the crew's astonishment, the horde parted. Without a word, they stepped aside, glaring but not striking. Ren muttered, "They're letting us through." "Why are they letting us through?" Marcus's eyes glinted. "Because they're smart enough to wonder what we're really doing here." Back in command, Kor stared at the feed. "They just walked past the death squad. No shots fired, no blood spilled. Why?" Sin folded his translucent hands. "Because the prisoners fear them more than they fear you." "That's impossible." "Is it?" Sin asked softly. "What do you fear more, chaos you understand, or order you cannot explain?" The humans entered a controlled junction. Consoles flickered, abandoned by fleeing guards. Juno immediately sat down and began typing. "Don't tell me," Ren said. "You're about to accidentally open every cell? Don't tempt me." Juno smirked. "But no, I'm redirecting power to the docking ring. If we want out, we'll need that clear." Marcus leaned against the wall, calm as ever. "Do it quietly. The less they know, the more they panic." Juno tapped away. "Funny thing is, their encryption's solid. But their operating system? It's basically a glorified vending machine. A few nudges, and it gives me everything." Ren blinked. "So you hacked the most secure prison in the galaxy with snack machine logic?" "Humans understand snacks," Juno said smugly. "Aliens don't stand a chance." Alarms shifted tone. A new alert echoed across the complex. Sector 9 breached. Maximum containment compromised. Kor's scales rattled in fury. "Seal Sector 9! Deploy annihilator drones!" "Sir," an officer said weakly, "those drones are offline." "Offline?" Sin tapped the console. "Redirected. Into the human's path, no doubt." Kor's claws scraped sparks from the table. "Then they'll die. Or," Sin said, "they'll tame the storm you send at them. And then you will understand what you've invited into your heart." Moments later, the humans heard the whine of approaching machines. 6 annihilator drones floated into view, spidery frames bristling with cannons. Ren raised his hands in mock surrender. "Oh good. Flying nightmares. I was hoping today would include those." "Stay calm," Marcus said evenly. "Machines, like people, respond to tone." He stepped forward, raising one hand as if greeting a friend. The drones paused, scanners sweeping over him. For a tense heartbeat, nothing moved. Then Juno tossed the small device onto the floor. It sparked once, and all 6 drones froze. A second later, they pivoted as one, turning their weapons on the prison guards chasing from behind. Ren's jaw dropped. "You reprogrammed them? In 10 seconds?" 8. Juno corrected, grinning. "They were begging for it. Worst firewall I've ever seen." The drones opened fire, driving guards back in panic. The humans walked on untouched. In the command hub, officers shouted in terror. Screens filled with images of drones slaughtering guards. Kor roared, smashing another console. "This is war!" Sin simply whispered. "No, this is theater. And the humans are the playwrights." The crew reached another bulkhead. Marcus paused, his gaze sweeping the chaos. He sipped the last of his coffee before setting the empty mug on a console with deliberate finality. "Observation," he said softly. "They're stretched thin. If we keep moving, they'll collapse under their own weight." Ren frowned. So what's the plan? Marcus smiled. Walk out the front door. That's the plan? Yes. Complicated plans are easier to notice. Simplicity terrifies them more. As if to punctuate his point, a prisoner approached, a lithe, four-eyed alien with scars across its chest. It bowed slightly. You walk free where none should. Who are you? Marcus regarded it politely. Tourists. With unfortunate timing. The alien studied him for a long moment, then stepped aside. Then may your tour guide you well. Ren whispered. They're buying this? Marcus's smile didn't reach his eyes. They're not buying it. They're deciding whether resisting us is worth extinction. The prison trembled with explosions, systems tearing themselves apart. Through smoke and shadows, whispers spread. The humans are untouchable. They opened the gates with words. Predators in polite skin. And as the chaos built, Marcus Hale led his crew deeper into the storm, every step as calm as if he had planned it all along. The prison quaked like a dying star. Explosions rippled through its skeletal frame as lights flickered and systems screamed in protest. Smoke curled from vents, mingling with the stench of ozone and blood. Through the chaos, the humans moved with unsettling composure. Where others sprinted in panic, they strolled. Where guards barked orders, they murmured jokes. It was not bravery, it was worse. It was confidence. Ren muttered under his breath as they stepped over the remains of another shattered bulkhead. You know what this feels like? A theme park. Except instead of rides, everything's trying to kill us. Accurate, Juno said, adjusting her toolkit. And I'd still take this over Disneyland in summer. Marcus gave a small, polite smile. Gentle reminder, keep your voices low. Terror spreads faster when carried by whispers. High above, in the command spire, Warden Kor's rage reached boiling point. Why aren't they dead? He snarled, claws gouging grooves into the steel table. Seal the sector. Deploy war beasts. Flood the corridors with gas if you must. Archivist Sin, calm even amid disaster, replied evenly. And risk killing half the inmates? The council will have your hide. I'll take council punishment over humiliation. Kor snapped. They're dismantling my prison, and they haven't fired a single shot. Sen's glowing eyes studied the humans on the screens. Marcus paused mid-step, tilting his head as though aware of being watched. The faintest smile crossed his lips. Sen felt a chill. He knows we're observing him. The crew approached a sealed gate marked with alien glyphs. Beyond it, heavy footfalls echoed, troops mustering for an ambush. Ren exhaled. Well, here's where it ends. They've got numbers, armor, weapons, and we've got sarcasm. Marcus touched the control panel, examining it like a chess player studying a board. Numbers mean little when fear is already in their ranks. We'll walk through as though we belong. Juno raised a brow. Belong? In a prison blockade? Yes, Marcus said simply. Predators don't ask permission to cross a field. They walk. Everything else decides whether to stay or scatter. The gate hissed open. Dozens of armored guards filled the corridor, weapons leveled. Their commander barked. On your knees! Marcus stepped forward, unhurried. No. The single syllable hung heavy, spoken not as defiance but as fact. His voice carried no anger, no desperation, just inevitability. For a beat too long, the guards hesitated. Weapons wavered. A ripple of uncertainty broke their formation. Marcus's smile was courteous, his eyes cold. If you fire, some of us fall. But you, he gestured to the trembling line, all of you burn. Consider carefully whether your loyalty is worth your lives. The commander's mandibles clicked, indecision plain. Then, one by one, the guards lowered their rifles. Ren blinked. You've got to be kidding me. Marcus inclined his head. Thank you, gentlemen. Do continue surviving. He walked past them as if they'd stepped aside out of courtesy. In the command spire, the control room fell silent. Officers stared at the feed in horror. Kor's scales rattled. They surrendered without a fight. Sen's voice was almost reverent. Not surrender. Recognition. The guards saw in him what we all fear to admit, that the humans didn't stumble here. They are in control. Kor hissed. Nonsense. They're improvising. Improvisation, Sun whispered, is just strategy moving faster than thought. The humans pressed deeper. The corridors shook with distant detonations as rival factions of prisoners clashed with their captors. Holographic signs flickered, showing maps scrambled by sabotage. Juno's console pinged. Captain, I've rerouted power to the outer ring. If we make it to docking gate 12, we can punch out. Ren frowned. And you don't think the entire garrison will be waiting there? Marcus's smile didn't waver. Of course they will. Which makes it the last place they expect us to walk through unchallenged. Ren groaned. You're terrifying, you know that? I've been told. A sudden screech echoed down the hall. From the shadows emerged a hulking beast, 12 feet tall, armored hide gleaming, jaws lined with serrated teeth. A warhound, bred to tear ships apart. It roared, shaking the walls. Ren whispered, We're dead. Marcus stepped forward calmly, tilting his head. His gaze locked on the beast's eyes. For a long, tense moment, neither moved. Then Marcus spoke softly, voice low but commanding. Not us. The warhound's growl faltered. Muscles tensed, then relaxed. Slowly, impossibly, it lowered itself to the ground, head bowed. Juno stared. You just tamed it? Not tamed, Marcus corrected. Recognized. Predators respect predators. Ren's eyes widened. You scare me more than that thing. Good, Marcus murmured. In the spire, Sun whispered. Did you see it? Even the warhound bent. No training, no command, just instinct. He is what the galaxy pretends doesn't exist anymore. Kor snarled, though fear flickered in his eyes. A trick. A coincidence. Coincidence, Sun said, is the word fools use for patterns they refuse to see. The humans pressed on, finally reaching a wide observation deck overlooking the prison's core. Fires raged below, cells wide open, prisoners battling guards and chaotic alliances. Ren whistled low. That's an entire empire's nightmare unchained. Juno folded her arms. And we're standing in the middle of it. Marcus gazed at the chaos, expression unreadable. Correction, we're standing above it. What difference does that make? Ren asked. Marcus turned, eyes sharp now, voice harder than before. Perspective. The Empire sees prisoners. I see weapons. And today, someone just set them free. For the first time, his crew caught the steel beneath his smile. This wasn't improvisation. This was orchestration. Ren's voice dropped. Marcus, this wasn't an accident, was it? Marcus said nothing. He only sipped from a fresh cup of coffee Juno had handed him, gaze fixed on the war tearing the prison apart. In the command hub, Sun finally spoke words that silenced the entire chamber. This was never a breach. It was a test. And the humans have already passed. The Imperial War Council had never convened in such silence. The chamber, carved from obsidian and lined with banners of past conquests, usually throbbed with noise, advisors shouting, strategists arguing, admirals demanding. Now, the silence was almost unbearable. Admiral Krivos sat stiff in his chair, for golden eyes fixed on the massive holo-display hovering above the table. It showed the latest report, one human colony ship, an unarmed, civilian craft by every metric, had docked at the Empire's frontier station. Hours later, 3 destroyers assigned to escort the humans for interrogation had vanished without a trace. Their transponders blinked out as though swallowed by the void. This is unacceptable, hissed Minister Velker, his scaled hands digging into the polished table. A primitive species stumbles into our territory, and instead of trembling, they laugh. Krivos interrupted, voice low. His mandibles twitched in irritation. They mocked us openly. And then, they erased 3 destroyers. Across the chamber, Grand Strategist Yelthian adjusted her cloak of silver feathers, her gaze sharp. Mockery is one thing. But no species destroys Imperial warships by accident. Which means they did it deliberately. Krivos finished. The Emperor had been silent until now, his colossal form seated upon the raised throne. His crest of horns glowed faintly under the chamber lights, a subtle reminder of the Empire's ancient power. His voice, when it came, was measured and heavy. Explain how a species with no record in our archives, no visible fleet, no claim to technology beyond primitive drives, erases ships from existence. No one answered immediately. Even Yelthian hesitated. Finally, Admiral Krivos spoke. Their behavior is calculated. They feign ignorance, cloak themselves in humor and casual talk. But behind it, he paused, remembering the way the human captain had smiled when threatened, as if measuring the Empire instead of fearing it. Behind it is intent. They're probing us, testing limits. The Emperor's claws drummed against the armrest. And what is your assessment? Krivos exhaled slowly. We may have stumbled upon a predator disguised as prey. Meanwhile, aboard the human colony's ship Dauntless, the atmosphere was markedly different. Captain Elena Rourke leaned back in her chair, sipping lukewarm coffee from a steel mug. Around her, the bridge crew were relaxed, chatting as if they weren't deep inside enemy territory. Think they'll send more ships? Asked Lieutenant Harper, glancing at the quiet radar screen. Oh, definitely, Elena replied, her tone light. Empires love dramatic gestures. If they can't scare you with words, they'll throw fleets at you. The crew laughed softly, as though the idea of an alien armada was a mild inconvenience rather than an existential threat. At the back of the room, Dr. Malik, the ship's science officer, frowned at his console. I've been analyzing the energy spikes from their weapons fire. They're powerful, yes, but inefficient. They bleed energy at every stage. They're loud. Obvious. We could map their entire arsenal just by watching a single volley. Elena smirked. So, not subtle hunters then. Just bullies with big sticks. Exactly, Malik said, his eyes gleaming. They've never needed efficiency because no one ever forced them to evolve it. Until now. The words hung in the air. Everyone understood the implication. Humanity had been underestimated before, by nature, by history, by itself. Every time, survival had meant adaptation. And adaptation had always meant turning weakness into terrifying strength. Back in the War Council, panic simmered beneath the surface. Reports kept arriving, each more disturbing than the last. The humans had requested diplomatic talks, but refused to surrender weapons for inspection. They casually bypassed security lockdowns at the frontier station. They asked oddly specific questions about the Empire's military supply lines and logistics. Questions no naive explorers would think to ask. And the missing destroyers remained unaccounted for. No wreckage. No distress calls. Just absence. Minister Velker finally snapped. This is intolerable. If we do not crush them now, we will lose face across the sectors. Every client world will sense weakness. Yelthian's feathers rustled in disapproval. Strike too hard, and we reveal our fear. A true predator will smell it. The Emperor's gaze swept the chamber. So we stand between two choices: ignore them and risk mockery, or confront them and risk exposing our throat. No one dared answer. On Dauntless, Elena stood before the viewport, watching the stars drift by. She spoke quietly, almost to herself. They think they're deciding what to do with us. Funny thing is, they don't realize we're the ones deciding what to do with them. Lieutenant Harper joined her. You think they'll figure it out? Eventually, Elena said, a faint smile tugging at her lips. But by then, it won't matter. She tapped her wrist console, bringing up a hidden display. It showed icons, faint, ghost-like pings scattered across the map. Not ships of the Empire, but something else. Something vast, cloaked, waiting in silence at the edges of the sector. Humanity had not stumbled blindly into the Empire. The accident had been no accident at all. Elena's smile hardened. Let them wonder. Let them debate. By the time they understand what we are, the board will already be set. The War Council continued late into the cycle. Voices rose, arguments splintered. Some demanded annihilation of the human ship, others urged capture. No consensus emerged. Finally, the Emperor raised his hand, silencing the chamber. "Summon the Grand Armada," he declared. "If these humans wish to test the Empire, then the Empire will show them its teeth." Admiral Krivos bowed his head. But inside unease gnawed at him. He had seen the human captain's eyes. Calm, amused, as if watching a play whose ending she already knew. For the first time in his long career, Krivos wondered if the Empire had already lost, before the war had even begun. On the bridge of Dauntless, the alert chimed softly. Multiple warp signatures detected. Dozens. Hundreds. The Imperial Armada was arriving. The crew stirred, but no one panicked. Elena simply set down her coffee, straightened her uniform, and addressed her people with steady calm. "Well," she said, "looks like the neighbors brought a welcome party." Laughter rippled through the bridge. Fingers moved across controls with practiced ease. The ship's systems came alive, but not with desperation, with precision. Elena's gaze hardened as the enemy icons filled the screen. "Let's show them," she said, "why humanity doesn't scare easily." And in the cold silence of space, something vast stirred, hidden fleets, waiting for her command.